Dollar. Dirt on money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack and flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yup, what's good, original crew, man? We're back. Today, we have serial killers that were never caught. You got any of them in your head?
That were never caught?
Yeah. What is it? The only one was it the BTK? No. He was caught, wasn't he?
Let me see. Oh, I got one in my head. Let me see.
BTK. Nah, he got caught. He was caught. It's one I can't think of. He was not caught, and they still don't. The Zodiac.
I was just looking it up. I was like, "What's the Zodiac killer ever caught?"
No.
His second attack.
No, he was.
Yeah,
never
I don't
caught.
think. Yeah, Zodiac was never caught. Yeah, that's the only one I can think
the only
of.
one, man. So this should be a good one, man. So with that being said, before we get into it, make sure you check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go if you want to first support. All you have to do is check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's visuals.
I can't with a thumbs up.
But let's go. Let's get into it. Let's check it out. Let's see what's about, y'all.
I think most people would like to believe that when you do something wrong, it'll catch up to you, whether that be legally or even just karma. But as we all know, that isn't always the case. And that's why today, I'm going to be discussing serial killers who were never caught. Horrible people doing horrible things that, unfortunately, were never served justice. At least not yet. One quick note before we begin is that these are real criminals with real victims, and I'm going to be doing my best to be respectful as possible. This video isn't in any particular order, even though this video is a list, simply because I do not want to put any of these people above or below each other. All of these people are horrible and do not deserve a ranking. Now let's get into the video. Starting off, we have the Servant Girl Annihilator. A pretty gruesome name, but he was a pretty gruesome guy. And I felt like he was an appropriate first entry for this list because he was the first known serial killer in the United States of America. Between December 1884 and December 1885, he killed 7 women and 1 man. And he had a very peculiar signature. He killed people with an axe. In just one night, on December 24th, 1885, you're right, Christmas Eve, he murdered 3 victims with an axe, which is why they also called him the Austin Axe Murderer. For obvious reasons, there's not a lot known about this killer, and that's going to be a common trend among all of these killers, unfortunately. And a lot of what is known is the sheer brutality that happened to the victims, and for also obvious reasons, I won't be going into too much detail on that. But one interesting detail that I thought I would share is the fact that there's a rather interesting conspiracy floating around with the Servant Girl Killer, specifically being that he could potentially also be Jack the Ripper. Why? Because this string of murders in Texas happened 3 years before the murders of Jack the Ripper across the pond. Could they be the same person? Personally, I'm not sure if there's any validity to it, but it's an interesting thought. Next up, we have a...
Well, how did Jack... I've heard about Jack the Ripper, never looked into him. So many killers, bro. You can't look into all of them. Also, we're going to lack detail just because of the time period. We're not going to have that information. But... what if it is the case? Jack the Ripper was never caught. But also, is the MO the same? If the MO is same, I will understand why you're doing that speculation. But if the MO, the type of way they do the murders, if it's not the same, then I doubt.
Or like people like he could have just switched it up.
Nah. If you did 7 girls, one guy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did 8, and they were pretty much the exact same style, you don't switch. That's your. It's like
I guess it'll be
that's your signature. Like, you know, once you get that one signature, and you like, once I perfect it, nobody else can do this the way I do it.
But I guess to be walking around like with an axe is very like, you know.
It's the times. You thinking of now. The times.
No, I'm thinking that. I'm just thinking.
In Texas, an axe to me.
Just walking around with one.
Not necessarily walking around. I doubt he walked around. That was just how he committed his murders, and he sounded like he did them at night.
I mean, probably we don't.
Ain't nobody gonna peep him. You gotta also think about it. You know, old people, older times, they go to bed earlier. So they probably in bed in the house by 7, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I get to roaming at night. They typically were up earlier too. And it's wintertime. Crop season. They really in the house.
Okay, babe, we got it. Yep.
Sun go down,
Another interesting situation as this entry isn't just one killer, it's likely many. I'm talking about the Highway of Tears killers. The Highway of Tears is a 719-kilometer long corridor of Highway 16 between Prince George and Prince Rupert in British Columbia, Canada. And this stretch of highway has become notorious for murders that have happened on it. The crimes happening on this highway date back to as early as 1970 and are still believed to be happening to this day. Due to poor economic situations and the lack of public transportation, for a lot of the poorer citizens, hitchhiking was a big method of transportation, leaving vulnerable individuals at risk. Unfortunately, in that case, that meant many indigenous women were at risk. Almost all of...
That's how John Wayne Gacy almost had his first one. Because, remember, where we hear that from?
You probably heard it from all the stuff you be watching.
But John Wayne Gacy first, why you say it like that?
Because you be into this stuff. I mean, I'm into it, but not like that.
Oh my God, you acting like I'm obsessed with it.
Who? You said obsessed. Yeah. Oh, I thought you... Okay, but yeah.
But no, his first guy that he almost got was because he picked up a guy. Well, I think he was a teenager, 16, 17, hitchhiking. He got him in a car. He locked the doors on the boy. Said he was able to open the door and jump out. And
I do remember you telling me that.
Then after that, they said he was John Wayne learned from that, and he fixed the lock where once you in the car, you can't hop out. So.
Unfortunately, in that case, that meant many indigenous women were at risk. Almost all of the victims of the Highway of Tears were indigenous women, and there is believed to be at least 80 missing and murdered indigenous women. One of the saddest parts about the stretch of highway is that a lot of these victims were never even found and are still considered missing and not homicides. And focusing on the criminals, the one interesting part is that only one person has ever been convicted on this highway, and unfortunately, they were only convicted for one murder and could have only possibly been able to commit 2 of them, meaning that there are likely many murderers still out there not served justice.
What is the reason why so many murders happen on this highway? Is because they know so many has happened, or so many disappearances have happened on this highway that 9 times out of 10 I can't get caught. So if I'm gonna do one,
then I'm gonna go here and do it.
And then y'all are targeting a specific group. Yeah. Because obviously y'all feel as though they don't care about them hard enough to even look.
We have the Oakland County child killer, also known as the babysitter killer. And this story is seriously twisted. As the name may imply, this killer targeted children in Oakland County. Between the span of February 15th, 1976 and March 16th, 1977, only 13 months apart, 2 boys and 2 girls aged 10 to 12 went missing outside of their homes. Each child's body was discovered in a public area within 20 days of their disappearance, and all of the children were either strangled or shot. The 4 deaths triggered a murder investigation, which was at the time the largest in U.S. history. And the breaking of this news also caused a significant panic among parents in Michigan. Despite a few promising leads, including the discovery of a vehicle suspected to belong to the killer, this case remains unsolved. In 2012, we had the most recent development, which investigators were able to actually create a DNA profile of the killer. But unfortunately, this didn't match up to any of the suspects or even anybody in the police database. A quick note to mention is that the 4 victims I mentioned are only confirmed victims, and there is potentially many more. And the timeline I mentioned is only the confirmed timeline, and many more could have taken place outside of that. This is just what is confirmed for this killer. Staying on the topic of murderers who targeted children, we have the alphabet murderer, also known as the alphabet killer or the double initial killer. If you haven't noticed already, a common trend is these killers having pretty obvious names, but I don't think it hurts to spell it out. This killer had an affinity for matching initials, and all 3 of their victims had the same first and last initial, with the victims having the initials CC, WW, and MM. These unsolved child murders took place between 1971 and 1973 in Rochester, New York. I'm starting to think it was pretty rough being a child in the 1970s. All of the Alphabet Killer's victims were assaulted and strangled, and despite the fact that there was witnesses, specifically several motorists who saw 10-year-old Carmen Collin half naked on the side of the highway attempting to escape the killer, the police were never able to close the case. Although police did have several persons of interest, one of them connected as recently as 2011, none of them had close enough ties to the murders to be convicted. Although interestingly, one of the Alphabet Killer suspects was sentenced to death for murder for killing sex workers in Nevada. Completely unrelated. Strangely though, all of his victims in Nevada had the same first and last initial. Could this be the Alphabet Killer from New York? Seems very possible. Shifting our focus over to Scotland.
Or a copycat. Could be a copycat. Somebody who's... but typically... I don't know. Well, you do have some people who will try to look up to certain people, but they come up with their own MOs. But I guess that the first and last name being the same initial could be the copycat type of thing, right?
Yeah, could be. I've never...
Or y'all might have caught the person. Because 9 times out of 10, I got arrested in Nevada for it, right? Mm-hmm. What if because I don't know the laws in Nevada, so I can't speak on it.
Yeah.
But what if they don't have a death penalty, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you get me for the cases in New York.
Yeah.
And New York do have a death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna confess to the New York ones
right.
because now I'm already a convicted serial killer, right?
Yeah.
If I go to New York,
y'all most
definitely gonna give me the chair.
So
that's the reason why I feel like some people don't confess to certain ones because of the jurisdiction laws and stuff like that. Sure. Like even like Dahmer, in his situation, his first murder, I think what I'm finna say, I don't know if Ohio has death penalty. I don't think so, but I do know Wisconsin don't. Mm-hmm. I do know that for a fact. So he was okay with claiming the murders in Wisconsin, right? They speculate him having a involvement in the one that happened in Florida. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't, even if he had did the one in Florida, he would have never told about the one in Florida because Florida has the death penalty. So I don't think he would have even admitted to the fact that, I had involvement in killing the guy's son. Yeah. Even though it was speculated that he possibly had some involvement in it. If Florida had I think if he did have involvement, he would have, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, man.
Now we have Bible John, an unidentified serial killer who has killed at least 3 young women between 1968 and 1969. All of Bible John's victims are believed to have met him in the Barrowland Ballroom, a popular dance hall in Glasgow, Scotland. Most of the few details known about this case come from one of the victim's sisters, who shared a taxi with her sister and the alleged killer, Bible John. The victim's sister's information helped the investigators form a psychological profile of the killer, with one of his biggest quirks being that he frequently referenced the Bible, hence his nickname, Bible John. Unfortunately, in 2010, the victim's sister has passed away, and we have lost the only eyewitness, meaning that the chances of this case ever being solved are unlikely. Returning back to the United States of America, we have a killer with probably the most outrageous name. I'm talking about the West Mesa Bone Collector. The United States media really does a good job of giving serial killers names that are way cooler than they deserve. And also just more gruesome. Like, who thought of Servant Girl Annihilator? Like, annihilation, that is an insane adjective to use. Back to the topic at hand, the West Mesa Bone Collector was a serial killer in West Mesa, Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is also one of the most recent entries on the list, as the remains of 11 women were found buried in 2009 in the desert of West Mesa, obviously. There are at least 13 other potential victims of the West Mesa Bone Collector, reported as late as 2006, who were just not buried in this one mass grave. So, confirmed 11, but potentially all the way up to 24 and beyond. Like many on this list, the police considered several suspects, but lacked enough evidence to make a strong enough case against any one suspect. Some theories suggest that the West Mesa Bone Collector may actually be a group of people involved in running a sex trafficking ring, specifically because a lot of these victims were sex workers. As recent as 2021, the police have confirmed that the case is still active. And despite the fact that the police are still receiving 20 to 30 tips per year, there is no new evidence moving the case along. Truly unfortunate. If you haven't heard about any of the killers I've mentioned in this video so far, that's about to change, because the next two killers I'm going to discuss are arguably some of the most...
That might be a possibility. What he said was, or a pimp,
or it could be a group of people,
or
it could just be one person that seek certain group of women.
Because like the guy in Alaska?
Yeah,
that situation.
Like
he
they
was only seeking sex workers. And how many he had? Like 50?
It was a lot.
Because we watched the movie.
It was a lot. And a lot of times they seek people that they feel like, either no one would really miss or have family, or people will really search for, or really put it. I don't know the logic behind it, but anyway,
one of those who kind of get lost.
Yeah,
it's family know that you always dipping off, and we don't never hear from you for a while. So
it's just kind of like a thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Sadly, that's sad, but it could just be one person.
That was his MO. He was he didn't go out to all sex work. He went out to certain ones. They
get to know you. They ask certain questions. They try to see,
who if you go missing or people don't hear from you in some months, who will actually go looking for you. If they feel there's nobody,
then
you're the perfect
then you're
victim.
A target.
Yeah.
Well-known serial killers of all time, and that starts with the Zodiac Killer. If that name rings a bell, you probably watched the 2007 Jake Gyllenhaal and Robert Downey Jr. blockbuster movie Zodiac. That movie has no doubt made the Zodiac Killer the most infamous unsolved serial killer in all of American history. The Zodiac Killer has confirmed to have killed 5 victims and injured 2 victims across the span of 1968 and 1969, but he claims that he has killed up to 37. Now you might be asking yourself, what do you mean claim? He wasn't caught. How did he talk to the police? Well, that's kind of where he got his name from. The Zodiac coined his name in a series of taunting messages that he mailed to regional newspapers, in which he threatened to go on killing sprees and bombings if they did not print his messages. Some of his letters included cryptographs and ciphers, in which the killer claimed that he was collecting the victims as slaves for the afterlife. This guy was twisted, and that's not even the start of it. Out of the 4 ciphers that the Zodiac made, 2 remain unsolved, and 1 was actually successfully cracked in 2020. Only one suspect has ever been named publicly by authorities, and due to the weirdness of this case and the sheer depth of the rabbit hole, there is a large public interest in this story. And I could honestly go on for hours about this with just publicly available information, but for the sake of this video, these are the important details. If this is interesting to you, I highly recommend you do some research on it, as the story does go deep. The last correspondence from the Zodiac Killer with any sort of publication was in 1974. The case has been marked inactive and then reactive a few times over the years, and in some places is still considered active to this very day. But unfortunately, even with all of the public interest, it is unlikely that this case will be solved. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Like I said, this video isn't in any specific order, but I did keep this one for last. One thing I will mention though is that this list isn't every single uncaught serial killer. Unfortunately, there is still a lot more that exist. I just couldn't make this video super long. But if you would like a part 2, I will gladly make it. And for the identity of our final killer, well, that's unknown. This is likely one of the most famous unknown serial killers, and also just serial killers to ever exist. I'm talking about Jack the Ripper. Even if you're not somebody who binges morbid content or watches serial killer documentaries on the weekends, you've probably heard of this name before. Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer active in the slums of London, England in 1888. Jack's attacks typically involved women working as prostitutes who lived in the slums of East London. These women would have their throats cut and then have their abdominals manipulated. The removal of internal organs of at least 3 victims led to the suspicion that the killer had some surgical knowledge. The official numbers and even motives are unknown, but there are believed to be at least 5 canonical victims of Jack the Ripper. Much like the Zodiac Killer, the Jack the Ripper lore goes much wider than the scope of this video. But one interesting point I wanted to make is that a lot of what solidified Jack the Ripper's legacy was unintentionally created by the media of the time, which is also the case for a lot more recent serial killers, for example, Jeffrey Dahmer and the like. It's a rather interesting byproduct of spreading awareness, and I thought I'd mention it. But that's it for me, at least for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You know, because I always be like,
it makes me think.
I always say this, that like how many serial killers technically are out there that
has never been called.
No. They're still going on to this day.
Oh, that are still committing,
which I'll say, because I always say, well, I don't think it's as many because of technology, but technology also only makes one smarter. Mm-hmm. So it makes them be also more careful.
Yeah.
So, because you hear that? Oh, somebody rolling.
It sounds strange.
Somebody rolling. Cause like when people talk about like the gang stuff, and I don't consider them like serial killers. Like when gang violence and stuff, I'm like, because that's not like, I don't look at this like that, because
yeah, you ain't gotta get into it, but yeah,
it's like they do have, it's a motive behind it. Most serial killers, there's no motive behind it. There's just plot. You get what I mean? Like, there's no reason why they dislike this individual. They just want to carry out whatever sick adventures they have. Like, when it comes down to gang violence and stuff, it's be rivals. It's more deeper than what you, like, one individual would think. You know what I'm saying? So, that's the reason why I don't look at that like that. But when it comes down to... Because they just caught one not too long ago. Was he in New York? Because he left a pizza box on the beach, and they was able to get his DNA. I think it was somewhere in New York, I want to say.
I don't know that.
You don't know about that one? You don't? How much time we got, y'all? Hold on. Serial.
What that's?
Bad eyes.
I seen that on a TV show.
The Gilgo Beach murder suspect Rex charged in 4th. He just got charged with his 4th in January. But
what did he look like?
It was a white guy.
Like, if I see a picture of him, then I probably would. Oh, yeah. I've seen his picture. I've seen his picture before. But I didn't, like, look into it, though.
But, yeah. No, I think they can confirm 4. Possibly they think it's 5.
Yeah.
And he had commercials and everything, because whatever he did, like, he had money. Like, it was like, bro, what? But typically, a lot of them that do turn out to be looks like your average regular day person you run into on the street. Mm-hmm. Like, I guess Jeffrey, average weirdo you might come across every day, right? The one that they thought was the cute guy that killed all the women.
What's his name? The one that Zac
Efron played.
Yeah, Zac Efron played. What is his name?
Ted
Bundy. I'm like, what is his name? I know his name. It's
looks
something.
like your average guy.
Yeah.
Even what's the one in Chicago with the clown? John Wayne Gacy. Look like your average guy. Look like your average guy in the...
You know, so most of them will, because a lot of them, they just going to blend in with...
Like, even the BTK. Your average guy.
He look crazy.
No, he do
like your average guy, but he do look a little
look
crazy.
like your average professor you would run into at a college. Does he not? That nobody likes.
Let me see this picture. Yeah, he look like your average guy, and most of them do. Cause
what you would think of serious? You think somebody rough, looking, dirty? I'm saying just your thought.
I know, but when people say that, I'm like, what does a serial killer look like? A serial killer looks like your everyday person. Like, what does a serial killer really look like?
Honestly, what does a killer look like?
What does a killer look like?
Somebody who
anybody.
Only difference between a human being, well, not a human being, because they are human beings.
Yeah.
Only difference from a killer and a non-killer is one has killed. That's the only thing different. It ain't even necessarily mindset, because some people have the same mindset. It's just they haven't crossed that line, and one has crossed that line. sometimes you would think, oh, this person they look like they might be a killer. This person, you would never even thought.
Never expect.
And then you be like, damn, you done killed that many people. You ain't never did nothing.
Once people like put that out or you find stuff out, you like, wow, I would never have thought. Because what does one look like?
Facts, man. It's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Y'all spend most up in the comments, man. Let us know y'all thoughts about it in the comment section down below. But as always, man, y'all know how it go. I do go by the name DJ the Kid. This is.
We are.
Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack and flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money low, get my team strong. Let me run away from